The night my wife left the house dressed in a way I hadn't seen in years, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even heartbreak. It was the quiet realization that the person I trusted most was no longer emotionally present. What I didn't understand at the time was that this moment would eventually change how I saw myself, my marriage, and my own boundaries. If you've ever felt unseen in a relationship or struggled to understand how things fell apart so quietly, you're not alone. Consider subscribing and stay with me. This is a long story, but it's one about resilience and self-respect. From the outside, my life looked completely stable. 13 years together, 10 years of marriage, 2 wonderful children. We had a home built around routines, school schedules, birthday reminders, and grocery lists stuck on the fridge. It was a life I thought was solid, dependable. We weren't extravagant, but I believed we were a team. My role in that team was clear, or so I thought. My wife was the primary earner, and I supported her career fully. I was proud of her success. I genuinely believed this was what a modern partnership looked like, each of us contributing in our own significant way, building a life together. Our conversations, which used to be the bedrock of our relationship, felt strained and difficult. It started to feel like my very presence was an irritation to her, though for the life of me, I couldn't understand why. The physical closeness, the casual affection that had always been there, just disappeared. It wasn't a conscious decision we made, it just faded away. A hand that used to find mine no longer did. A goodnight kiss became a formality, then a memory. Weeks of this turned into months. There was no explanation, no real discussion, just a widening, silent distance between us. I tried to talk about it. I really did. I'd wait for a quiet moment when the kids were asleep and gently ask if everything was okay. I'd say, I feel like we're drifting apart. Can we talk about it? She'd become defensive, telling me I was being too sensitive or that she was just stressed from work. She became emotionally closed off, a fortress I couldn't get into. It got to the point where I felt like I was sharing a home with a stranger. We were roommates living parallel lives, and the silence was deafening. I felt completely alone in my own home. Then came the night that changed everything. It started so ordinarily. But what really stood out, what made a knot of unease form in my stomach, was how much effort she put into getting ready. She put on an outfit I hadn't seen her wear in a very, very long time. While she was gone, I went through the usual evening routine with our kids. We had dinner, I gave them their baths, we read stories, and I tucked them into bed. The house grew quiet. Later, as I was tidying up the kitchen, I went to put something away in our bedroom. That's when I noticed something small, but deeply unsettling. A drawer in her nightstand, a drawer that was usually untouched, was empty. Certain items that were always there were gone. I sat on the edge of our bed for a long time, just staring at that empty space. My hands started to feel unsteady. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't get a full breath. It's strange, but the first emotion wasn't anger, it was anxiety. It was a profound confusion and a deep, cold fear of what this all might mean. The pieces weren't fitting together, but the picture they were starting to form was terrifying. She came home much, much later than expected. The moment she walked through the door, I knew something felt different immediately. She avoided my eyes, busying herself with putting her keys down, taking off her coat. The air was thick with unspoken words. When I finally asked who she'd been with, her answer was vague. She told me she needed time for herself if our marriage was going to continue. Then she said something that would echo in my mind for days, weeks, months. She looked at me, but not really at me, and said, "I don't think I want to be married anymore, and it's not about you." That sentence just hung there in the air. It was only the "I don't want to be married" part that hit the hardest. It was the "it's not about you." It felt so dismissive, as if our 13 years, our home, our children, my contributions, as if all of it meant nothing. I just lay there in the dark, listening to the sound of my own breathing, feeling completely overwhelmed by grief and a paralyzing uncertainty about the future. She described feeling disconnected, not just from me, but from relationships in general. It was a confusing explanation, full of contradictions. Then she suggested something I was completely unprepared for. She asked if we could redefine our marriage. I asked her what that meant. What would that look like for us emotionally and physically? She didn't have a clear answer. She said she wanted freedom, but she also wanted the stability of our home and family for the children. That was the moment of absolute clarity for me. That was when I realized we were no longer working from the same rulebook, the same understanding of what marriage even was. We began living more like roommates. To create some space, I moved into the guest room. The house felt huge and empty, and in that space, over time, something unexpected happened. When I stopped trying to fix everything, when I stopped pouring all my energy into a relationship that only I seemed to be fighting for, I started focusing on myself. It was a slow process. I started exercising more. I went for long runs, clearing my head. I started reaching out and going out socially. I reconnected with old friends I had lost touch with, realizing how much I'd isolated myself. But more importantly, I noticed it in myself. I remembered what it felt like to feel confident in my own skin, to not have my self-worth tied to someone else's approval. My wife noticed the shift as well. As I grew stronger and more independent, our dynamic changed. I wasn't waiting by the phone. I wasn't desperately trying to get her attention. I was building my own life. That was when I knew I had to ask for space. Real space. It wasn't a move made out of anger or revenge. It was made out of clarity. I needed to understand what my life looked like when I was on carrying the emotional weight of our entire family on my shoulders. That time apart gave me a perspective I couldn't have found otherwise. I felt calmer, more grounded, and I saw that my children were calmer too. They responded to my stability. When she and I finally reconnected to talk about the future, things were different. She expressed regret. She said she wanted to repair what had been damaged between us. But I had changed. I wasn't heartened by the experience, but I was clearer. I was no longer afraid of the relationship ending, and in that lack of fear, I found a profound sense of peace. I used to think strength meant holding everything together at any cost, even if it was breaking you. Now, I understand that real strength can also mean letting go, or at the very least, redefining what you're willing to accept to protect your own well-being. Growth isn't about winning or losing in a relationship. It's about discovering who you are when everything familiar falls away. It's about finding your own footing on unstable ground. If this story resonated with you, feel free to like and subscribe. And remember, if you've ever had to redefine your boundaries to protect your peace, you are not alone, and you are stronger than you think. Thanks for listening.